For over 15 years, Saturdays and Illegal Curve have been synonymous with one another. With insight, analysis, and interviews regarding the Winnipeg Jets, the Manitoba Moose, and all around the NHL, here are Dave Manouk, Ezra Ginsburg, and your host, Drew Mindell. The Illegal Curve Hockey Show, presented by Play Now, the official sports betting partner of the Winnipeg Jets, starts now.
Good morning, Winnipeg. Good morning, Manitoba. For all those joining us live this morning on our YouTube channel and all of our social media platforms, we say good morning, universe, and welcome to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Along with Dave Manouk, along with Ezra Ginsburg, I'm your host, Drew Mindell, here for the next couple of hours, getting you set for a double game day. The Jets are in Utah to face the hockey club. The Moose are playing as well. It's a busy Saturday in the hockey world. We're thrilled to be a small part of it as you get ready for a full day of Saturday hockey. Good to see both of you gentlemen on this Saturday morning. Shout out to Dave M for pulling some late night hours Tuesday and Thursday, as you get credit for half of those. But it's great to be all back together as we are down to the final, 10 days or so before the end of the regular season.
And also, Drew, good morning, boys. Shout out to the legend himself, Joe Pascucci.
Unbelievable. Joe working the late night hours, Eastern time zone. Joe doesn't care. He must be nocturnal or jumps at the opportunity to spend any quality time with Dave M. He joined the crew on Dave and Joe drove the post-game show bus on Thursday after that huge Winnipeg Jets victory over the Vegas Golden Knights.
And Drew, I'm just trying to figure out, I realize that Dave has been using the virtual background now for several weeks, but I'm just wondering, Dave, is there a green screen behind you as well? Because it's looking a little bit more, there's an outline around your body right now. So I'm not sure if you've moved to a full green screen, but it's definitely not your house because the fire's not moving. And I just happen to know that it's a virtual background, but I'm just wondering if you've gone to a green screen.
I have not.
Dave is I'm not even humoring Ezzy with the conversation about the virtual background. He's talking about the telling tales out of school. It's going to result in some illegal curve discipline after the show is over, but that's okay nonetheless. You know how we roll on this show is we roll the bus over one another at every given opportunity.
I just can't tell where Dave is right now. Dave could be anywhere.
Ignore Ginsburg. I'll just talk to you and say good morning to you, and thanks for pulling your weight on the Tuesday, Thursday late nights.
Can't ignore me.
They were good shows. I have to give credit to, as you guys just talked about, Joe Pascucci was awesome, and love bringing Joe on. Always has. Of course, it was fresh off the 5-goal effort from Alexei Zamnov 30 years after that, to the day of that LA Kings game, which makes
I remember vividly where I was when that happened.
I was gonna say nothing makes you feel old than realize that goal that game was 30 years ago.
Yeah,
but Joe always has the best.
Drew was a young man back there. He was only 45.
I was gonna say he was in his mid 40s at that point. So,
I was at I'll tell you exactly. I was at the Viscount Gord Hotel. Because it was BBYO, which is the B'nai B'rith Youth Organization. So I was a teenager. It was their winter convention.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yep.
When that happened, when he scored those 5 goals. So I can remember it. I can remember it vividly. Sort of looking. You couldn't go into the bar, obviously, because I was a teenager, but you could see the TV screen from the bar from outside. I remember watching it because that was back in the day when games weren't readily available. That wasn't a game that was on TV here in Winnipeg. I think I was watching it on Prime Ticket, which was the LA Kings regional broadcaster back in the day. You had to have a big satellite dish to be able to capture road games like that. So I remember it vividly and how much fun that was. But it was an incredible effort from Zamnov, and it's still incredible to talk about it 30 years later, right, Dave?
It is indeed, and it's also an incredible effort from Joe Pascucci because, as you point out, Drew, he was out in Toronto and still managed to join us. So I was like, we finished that show. I'm like, Joe, it's almost 2 a.m. for you. But he didn't care. He was good. So great having him on. We appreciated him joining up. But it's always best when the trio is back together, which we will be today and, of course, tonight.
That's exactly right. And tonight, of course, the Winnipeg Jets will be in Utah to face the Hockey Clubbers. Here's where the numbers break down at this point of the season, gentlemen. 108 points, the Jets top in the league. Points percentage of 711, they're top in the league. goal differential of plus 84. That's tops in the league. But the last time the Jets went into Utah back on January the 20th, they lost 5-2 to the hockey club. So I think the question first and foremost on everybody's mind entering tonight's contest, is this, for the top team in the NHL, a measuring stick game against the hockey club of Utah?
It's absolutely a measuring stick game, Drew.
Once I saw quote, so sorry, let me just interrupt for a second, Ezzy. Once I saw that quote after the Tuesday loss to the Kings, I was like, okay, well, this is like manna from heaven for the Winnipeg Jets, in that and I don't know who the reporter was in LA, and I don't want to beat up on the reporter and everything else. It's, you can ask what you want, but just be careful. You might get some sharp elbows back in return. But I'm like, perfect. This LA reporter has managed to, again, disrespect the Winnipeg Jets. They are going to feed off this like nobody's business. And they certainly, I think, to some extent, use that as motivation on Thursday night.
Well, Drew, as you know, the problem is that measuring stick game and all of these types of sports cliches, they're so prevalent that, I mean, like the Winnipeg Jets versus Dallas Stars 3 weeks ago on Friday night, that was a measuring stick game, right? Like Winnipeg versus the Washington Capitals for first place in the NHL. Like, to me, that's a measuring stick game. But like the Jets versus the LA Kings, all due respect to the Kings, that's not a measuring stick game, right? Like the problem is it's thrown around. These words are thrown around too often, right? But
of course,
I mean, what I just keep thinking about, boys, is, over the last 3 weeks, 4 weeks, the Jets just keep responding after a loss with a big win, right? Like starting with that Jets Stars game that they won 4-1, right? Obviously, there was the loss to the Canucks. And then we remember the 4-game homestand started off with the loss to the Sabres. But what did they do after that? They beat the Capitals, and then they shut out the Devils, right? And to me, I was down in Grand Forks for a night with the family. By the way, just a great time on the water slide, even though Ruben and I flipped over on the toilet bowl. If you're familiar with the Canadians water slides, that toilet bowl will get you. It's this massive water slide that's shaped like a toilet bowl, and then you get flushed down it. But we flipped over, so we were a little bit concussed, but we'll be okay. But I didn't watch the game, but I obviously watched the highlights, watched a bit of the post-game show, read some recaps, and there was a lot of similarities, I thought, to this game, to the Devils game, right, guys? Like, you get a few early goals, you add a goal in the second period, and then you kind of just go into shutdown mode. And that's when we've seen the Jets at their best. And it's usually after, a bit of a stinky loss, right? Whether it's the loss to the Canucks or the Sabres, or obviously most recently to the Kings, right, Dave? So,
yeah,
I mean, to me, that bodes well going into the playoffs, because as we know, even though, everyone's going to come out with their big predictions, and some people are going to pick the Jets for a sweep in the first round, and some people are going to say 6 games or 7 games or whatever, but that's what happens in the playoffs. You lose a game, you got to bounce right back, right? So we've seen the Jets do that, not just in the last month. Yeah, exactly. That's a funny comment from Joe from Winnipeg. But anybody who's been to that Canadians in Grand Forks knows what I'm talking about with that toilet bowl slide.
Can you just stop saying toilet bowl? It's just too early.
That's what it's called.
I know. I've spent time on it. It's just still too early. I mean,
Come on, Drew. I know.
The idea of you
many a
and
morning in a toilet
bowl
bowl
is just, it's just too much. I gotta tell you.
Okay, and I am drinking coffee, so I am gonna have to go to the bathroom pretty soon.
Jeez, nobody needs to know.
I know. I'm out of Imodium too, Drew. So, no, but I mean, the reality is, guys, looking at the last 25 games, the Jets are 18-6-1 in their last 25 games. That's pretty good. Right?
Yeah,
like that's good. So, I mean, the Jets are first place in the NHL, and it's not like they're just that. The thing, Dave, to me is that the Jets aren't just clinging on, right? Like the Stars keep winning. The Stars have 50 wins. It's hard to believe that the Stars have 50 wins, and they're not only are they not first in their own conference, they're not first in their own division, and it's because the Jets keep winning. So you can look at it like both ways, right, Dave? You could look at it like, well, Dallas keeps winning. Well, the Jets keep winning as well, and they're in a good position right now. And obviously, Utah guys, I mean, they're not a pushover, but they're obviously the definition of a middling team. And if the Jets play any way like they did against Vegas, they should be able to handle Utah okay.
Yeah, it's funny you should mention that, Ezzy, because if you look at this Jets team, they're 52 wins, right? And so you're like, okay, they just matched their career high for wins in their last game, which they had done previously in 17-18 and then last year. But both those 52nd wins came in the 82nd game. So this team will set the new record eventually, maybe today. But the fact of the matter is, and the crazy part, we talk about teams not gaining. St. Louis has won 11 in a row. And you think, okay, a team, even if they were kind of at you to the point you make, and we had Jeremy Rutherford on last week, who covers the Blues, if they're a middling team.
And St. Louis hasn't lost since we had Jeremy on, by the way, Dave.
Well, they haven't lost in ages. But the fact of the matter is that even when it looks like they're going to lose, they still win the games. But what's crazy to me is that even they can't really gain ground. They're still, I think, 5 or 6 back of the Colorado Avalanche. They're
9 back of the Avs now.
Oh, they're 9 back of the Avs. Okay, yeah. So they're that's my point. That
crazy.
But of course, they have overtaken the Wild, and the Wild lost again yesterday to I believe the Islanders 3-1. So the interesting thing for the Jets fans is that as long as the Jets can maintain their spot in first, you're setting yourself up either for the Wild or the Flames, and the Jets would be able to avoid the St. Louis Blues, provided they continue on the stretch, which I suspect they will. But and by the way, Paul Friesen in the Sun wrote an article about the Central, Ezzy, and how good it is. And you look at the Jets and the Stars and the Avs and running away with things. You look at what St. Louis is doing, and the truth is, if Minnesota doesn't lose Kaprizov and Joel Eriksson-Ek and like all these guys, they also would probably be on there, because remember, for the longest time they had as few losses as the Winnipeg Jets, and they were maintaining that pace where Dallas is now. So, but getting back to this game against Utah, I mean, this is an opportunity, and this is one thing we've seen from this Jets team, and as he's right, that when they have again, I wouldn't call the LA game a bad performance. I think that they just had bad turnovers that resulted in goals against. Usually things we would see Connor Hellebuck stop. And, he usually is kind of like the guy who bails out when David Gustafsson makes that mistake in the neutral zone, or Logan Stanley makes the mistake in the neutral zone. And he didn't do that. And I'm not blaming it on him solely. I'm just saying that usually we see him make up for the mistakes that his teammates sometimes do. But my point is that in a game that they weren't happy with the result, they go and they have what can only be described. I mean, think about it. It was the first time they've beaten Vegas in Vegas since January 1st of 2022.
It's crazy.
I know they don't play Vegas a ton in Vegas, but the fact of the matter is to not have a win there.
And they've lost 8 straight regulation games.
And that's what I was getting to. They've lost 8 in a row to Vegas. So you kind of slay that dragon, if you will. You get rid of the talk about the Vegas Golden Knights, and that was a Vegas Golden Knights team, Ezzy, that to my mind, I think that was pretty healthy, looking good. And as I said,
they were 100% healthy. I think the only guy that's out, they're back to full health, Dave. I think the only guy that's out right now for them is Samsonov, and he's been out the whole year basically.
So you've got a team that's back to full health. I thought they really neutralized Jack Eichel. And again, I think, you have a team that is feeling good about themselves. And obviously, I know they're dealing with injuries, and we don't know Nikolai Ehlers' status. He, of course, was hit with the puck twice. He got friendly fire, and he got the last one was the Cole Perfetti one in the third period.
He's a game time decision tonight. Just to update everybody. That's what they said about Ehlers.
Yes. No, I know. That's what I was going to get to that. But my point was that if you've got Ehlers, who Kenny Weeb reported yesterday, I always take whatever the coaching staff says with a complete grain of salt. Like, with all due respect to Scott Arniel, he said what he said yesterday, and we can get to that in a sec. But I mean, the point that,
are you talking about his appearance on the Jim Rome show? Is that what you're talking about?
That was 2 days ago, as he on a little site called LegalCurve.com. You can watch that. But yesterday, Weber, who's in Utah, saw Ehlers not skating, but he was walking around. And he said he was looking fine. Coach's comments specifically are he'll be a game time tomorrow. Not as bad as we had thought. A lot better today than he was, obviously, after the game last night. We'll take it to game time tomorrow and see how it goes. And got hit in the same leg twice there. Let's hope that's all it is, just day to day. That's why whenever he qualifies his original comment with a secondary comment, I take it with like a little question mark. So Ehlers is a question mark for tonight, but it sounds like they avoided what could have been potentially bad when that Cole Perfetti friendly fire incident.
When he's not leaving the game in a walking boot or something like that, that would indicate something more serious than a bruise. Then you sort of feel somewhat okay with whatever the end result's going to be, even if it means he ends up missing today's game. And we'll know more about that later. And of course, that'll be a talking point later tonight on the Illegal Curve post-game show, which will be right around 8:45 p.m. or so later tonight after the Jets and the Utah Hockey Club. Going back to that Vegas comment, just a quick note: Thomas Hertl was out of the Golden Knights lineup, but by and large, with the exception of Hertl, they were healthy, and it was an impressive performance by the Winnipeg Jets. They played their game. They played the game they want to play, and more often than not, really in the calendar year 2025, the Jets have played that game. And here's some numbers from Nick Lynham on Twitter. He put this out yesterday. In 2025, just to sort of exemplify how good the Central Division has been, the Jets are 24-9-3. The Dallas Stars are 28-8-3. The Avalanche are 24-11-4. St. Louis is 24-11-3. That's all in calendar year 2025. So these teams are just churning it around. They just keep winning. It's a gauntlet. It's a jungle, whatever descriptor you want to use to describe the Central Division. It is very much apropos for that. The question I have for you guys, though, the Jets are locked in, battling for their lives with the Dallas Stars, not for their playoff lives, but for first overall and everything.
Their first place lives.
Right, for their first place lives. Would you rather be in that kind of fight? Like, so the Jets really have to stay on top of their game in and game out? Or would you rather be in this position where, say, the Washington Capitals are so home and free, locking up the Metropolitan Division, 11 points up on the Carolina Hurricanes. Wow. So they're going to clinch the Metropolitan Division, pretty quickly here. Would you rather be in the Jets situation where there's a guy right on your tail, or would you rather be sort of home and cooled in the lead up and in the prep for the playoffs, which will start in about 2 weeks' time?
It's a very good question, and also, Drew, I'm shocked that you didn't mention Alex Ovechkin hitting 894 goals there.
Of course, we'll
mentioning the Washington Capitals.
Yeah,
obviously, Gretz was in the house, so you love to see that. And just as an aside, just amazing that he's scoring all these goals at his age, right? He's not a young man.
I do like that he said to Spencer Carberry yesterday. Because again, it's not an important game for the Capitals. They, whether they win or lose, and of course they beat the Blackhawks. It's not an important game. But I like that he said to Spencer Carberry, "No, I don't want to go out on the ice into the empty net. I want to score the record-breaking goal with a goalie in net." So I thought that was sort of that's sort of the right approach for the Washington Capitals and for Ovechkin to have taken. Now, if this was a more important game where the win actually mattered, maybe the tune changes a little bit. But given where they are in the standings, I don't think it's a big deal that he turned down the opportunity to get it into an empty net.
No, absolutely. And going back to your question, Drew, I mean, for me, I would say I'd rather be in the Jets position battling with the Dallas Stars for the division lead, for the conference title, for the President's Trophy. Obviously, the President's Trophy, they're battling with Washington. But to me, it ultimately comes down to, and we just had the comment up from our good buddy Brent Bellamy there, I would want to be playing meaningful hockey, and I think the Jets would agree with that, right? And the Jets are playing meaningful hockey because they need these points, right? Like, to Dave's point earlier, I'm using the word point a lot, but Braden Point, what's the point? But the thing is, the Jets need to have these points at this point in the state. I can't stop saying point. Sorry, boys. Let me get back on track here. Hopefully, I'll maybe not say the word.
Just keep going. Just don't let it get into your brain. Come on.
They need this numerical value, this accumulation of numbers. They need that at this point in the season because they have Dallas breathing down their necks, right? Like, if the Jets, for example, lost to their last game to the Vegas Golden Knights, I mean, it's a lot tighter. Now you have Dallas only a couple points back of the Jets, right? So, I mean, these points are huge at this stage in the season. Yeah, I said stage, Drew. I didn't say.
You stop talking, Dave. You jump in here so that Ginsburg.
What? That was some of my most articulate loquaciousness right there. Yeah, there you go. No, but Dave, you can get in here. But at the end of the day, I just think that, would it be nice to be able to kind of coast? By the way, I think it's crazy that there's that big of a cushion in the Metro Division because, guys, like, you forget the New York Rangers won the President's Trophy last year, right? Like, the Carolina Hurricanes, I picked them to win the Stanley Cup. I'm not the only one, obviously, but the fact that the Capitals are 11 points up on second in the Metro is just crazy, just as a side. But Dave, I think that this is a good thing. At the end of the day, what I'm trying to say is it's a good thing. Actually, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but it's a good thing to be battling for first place. It's always a good thing to be playing meaningful games at this point in the season.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you, Ezzy. And I look at, and it's funny, I had this conversation with Joe a couple of nights ago, but for me, I remember looking back when there was a conversation about how important was it to go into the playoffs hot.
Right.
And what I realized, and again, like I said, this is probably, I want to say I did this 5 years ago, but the truth was that it didn't really matter. There were
Well, we
all
saw it
sorts.
last year with the Jets.
No. I know. Well, I know the Jets specifically, but I was talking about teams that actually won the Stanley Cup. And I'm
Gotcha,
saying other
okay.
teams that won the Stanley Cup, you had all sorts. I remember that, I think it was 2013 Kings went in, they had I think they were 300%. I think they were or maybe 3, 5, and 2 or something like that. So they had kind of stumbled into the playoffs and still went on a hot streak. So, and obviously won the cup. But my point is, or maybe it was, I don't remember exactly what year it was, but anyways, point is that it was all over the board in terms of teams. There was no one size fits all. It wasn't like every team went in and you had to win over 7 of your last 10. And as you said, Drew, we saw what happened with the Jets winning 8 in a row and kind of cruising in and then thinking they were something that they weren't. So I'm with Ez in the sense that this is a situation where you're happy with your game overall. And as we've pointed out, this team hasn't had a huge drop off. I mean, remember, we tend to forget the Jets had gone into that game against the Kings having won 3 straight. So it wasn't as if they were slipping and sliding and all of a sudden, they had a bad game. Well, again, they lost. Wasn't like they lost a terrible game. And then they go in and they have a real good game against Vegas. So from the perspective of the Jets, I mean, the only reason why, in my mind, it would be, in theory, if you want to argue the other side of it, is that if you want to get some guys healed up, if you want to give some guys opportunity to rest, then you don't have to worry about running it all the way to the end, because it looks like this is going to be a dogfight right till game 82. And from that perspective, if you can't get out of the opportunity of, again, folks were talking about calling up Elias Salamonson or Brad Lambert or any of the variety of guys down on the farm and say, get them into a game or two. But as of right now, that game against the Anaheim Ducks on the 16th of April, I think it's a Wednesday.
It is.
That game could have meaning. You might not be able to take your foot off the gas until game 82. We'll find out.
They're not gonna pluck. Sorry, Dave, to cut you off. I was just gonna say they're not gonna pluck Elias Salamonson in there if that game has playoff implications.
That's my whole point.
There's 0% chance that.
But
happens.
I think they would love to be able to make it so. So let's game it out a little bit. Of course, the Jets have Utah tonight. They have St. Louis at home on Monday. Then they have the huge game against Dallas on Thursday before the back-to-back Saturday, Sunday, Chicago, Edmonton, and then they wrap the season with Anaheim. If the Jets can somehow have the Central locked away by after the Sunday game against Edmonton, which really which dictates them just winning. I mean, just take care of your own business. And if you win from tonight all the way through next Sunday against Edmonton, well, that Anaheim game will mathematically be meaningless,
right?
Because that means you would have beaten the Dallas Stars, and then you're looking at a week off for some of your players, because the regular season for the Jets ends on the Wednesday. If they can do something and have it clinched up by the Sunday, then you have that week where you can again rest. Nobody's going to be fully healthy that is banged up, but a week not off the ice, but a week of just practice, or a week without the intensity of games would I think be helpful. I don't expect that the Jets, I think it's a good thing that they are playing meaningful games this week. Yeah, maybe meaningful games next week. But I think for the hockey club itself, for the Jets, the True North organization, they would love to have something clinched by the Sunday, so that the Wednesday game against Anaheim doesn't mean anything to them. Because when you're playing a team
as
like
Jeff is
Anaheim,
saying below, Drew, look at Jeff's comment below. I mean, they lock up the division. Then the game against the Ducks will be a Moose showcase.
No question about it. We've seen games like that before. Last year, of course, when they locked it up, early, but they were still battling for jostling for playoff positioning last year, if you recall. I remember a game, must have been the first year the Jets qualified for the playoffs. Game 82 was a Saturday afternoon game against the Calgary Flames, and they ended up bringing up a whole bunch of guys from the Moose to play in that game. I think that it's important that you stay sharp. Going on, having a massive winning streak into the playoffs doesn't dictate future results. Yeah. But the way the Jets played on Thursday against Vegas, the way they played that Tuesday game against Washington, the way they played that game against Dallas a couple weeks ago, you're seeing that the Jets are still playing to the top of their skills. So here's some further numbers, courtesy Connor Harabchuk in his next day thoughts column on illegalcurve.com. Since the Four Nations break, the Jets' goals percentage, rank in the league is 5th. Expected goals, 2nd. High danger chances, 2nd. Scoring chances, 8th. Shot attempts, 10th. You can see that they're still, you can see where they are in the standings, and despite all inclination that once you clinch your playoff spot, you might take a little bit of a step back or something. They're not. They're continuing to churn as one of the premier teams in the NHL.
Drew, the only thing I'd say is, as I'm a little surprised, you have Eric Comrie behind you, and Drew hasn't welcomed him to the show.
Well, thank you. Thank you for picking up on that. That's what I was going for there. The brick wall known as Eric Comrie. And by the way, I wasn't on the postgame show, obviously, so can we just talk about how amazing that is that Eric Comrie thought his wife might give birth and then he ends up getting a shutout in Vegas? I mean, just incredible. So, and all those comments, I know, Dave, you posted them on the Illegal Curve Instagram, like all those comments of people saying that, the Golden Knights were going to get an easy win because Comrie was in net. Okay, obviously you guys have not been paying attention because Comrie, look at his save percentage, look at his goals against average. He's having a good year. So yeah, the brick wall known as Eric Comrie, this is for him.
And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Dave, but I believe he flew home back to Winnipeg after the game on Thursday. And I don't expect that he's going to dress for the Jets tonight in Utah, given the situation as his wife is expecting their kid.
He skated yesterday.
Did he skate? I thought he said that he was. I thought he said that he was.
I think he's ready to fly home.
Ready to fly home.
But I believe he's still in Utah as far, because I know that Weber yesterday posted that he was on the ice. I mean, I would presume that Chris Driedger will back up if necessary, but we'll see what happens. And of course, the Jets are only home for that one game against St. Louis, and they're back on the road. So
right.
So they're hoping that Baby Comrie is either going to be, well, I mean, again, we don't expect him to play. So, and Chris Driedger is more than capable of being a backup. I mean, he can sit on the bench. Any of us can be backups, right? So,
as long as we don't get called into action, yes, any of us can be backups.
As long as I can eat hot dogs on the bench, Dave.
There you go. But I mean, the expectation, as far as I know, I mean, again, based on what Weber reported, that Comrie is in fact in Utah. We don't know today. Morning skate in Utah is around, I think, 11:15. So of course,
it's interesting. I don't think it's a morning skate. It just said media availability because it's a 5:00 start. It's a 5:00 start local time in Utah. So I don't believe the players are going to actually be on the ice, but there's a media availability shortly after. I think it's 11:15 Central Time. There's a media availability.
Oh, yeah, you're right. It does. Yeah, you're right, Drew. It says media availability. So I suspect that we may know.
Who are you guys, Scott Brown?
But I guess what we'll do is we'll know based on who is not skate. Guys might still participate. It may be an optional. So we'll get if there's news to ferret out, Weber will sniff it out. So we'll get it that way.
There you go. That'll be all coming up. So keep it locked to illegalcurve.com and all of our various social medias, as we'll keep you abreast on everything to do with the Winnipeg Jets ahead of their contest tonight against the Hockey Clubbers of Utah.
Nobody likes saying abreast more than Drew.
Well, it's better than some of the words you've said so far on the show today. When we come back from sportsnet.ca, Jacob Stoller joins us for more Jets talk. Saturday morning, it's the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Drew Mandel, Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg. It's presented by Play Now. Don't go anywhere.
We want to thank you for not betting with Play Now and choosing our illegal gambling site instead.
Because we couldn't afford things like this without your money.
So much of your money.
Now you might have questions like,
do our profits benefit your community?
No.
Or bet with Play Now, Manitoba's local legal and secure gambling site.
Dining, entertainment, parking, and convenience, all in one spot. City Place is located in the heart of downtown Winnipeg, attached to the Canada Life Centre. Whether you're working, living, or out for a night in the downtown, make City Place your go-to destination before or after the fun finds you. Lunchtime, game time, anytime, visit City Place at 333 St. Mary Avenue, next to Canada Life Centre. Holt Dental, the new official dentist of Illegal Curve, has a philosophy rooted in two unyielding principles: genuinely caring about patients and providing outstanding service. Being a patient of Holt Dental means more than just checkups and treatments. It's taking the time to listen and talk to each patient so they can achieve the best long-term health, functionality, and aesthetics for their teeth, mouth, and gums. Conveniently located at Grant Park Festival on Taylor Avenue, Holt Dental is dentistry of the highest quality in a comfortable and relaxed environment. For more information, visit holtdental.ca. Oh, and there's plenty of free parking at the front door, too. Celebrating its 40th year as Winnipeg's home for stand-up comedy, Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club has recently been named Canada's top comedy club and a top 5 comedy club in North America. From birthday parties to date nights to fundraisers and everything in between, Rumors is your destination for the best and most affordable live entertainment Winnipeg has to offer. For more information on upcoming shows, Rumors' incredible promotions, and to purchase tickets, visit rumorscomedyclub.com.
At Boston Pizza, a fast lunch doesn't have to mean fast food. Now you can get a $15 lunch served in just 20 minutes, including your choice of a main, side, and drink. That's right, lunch for $15 at your local Boston Pizza.
Bottom of the hour, welcome back to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Drew Mandel, Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg. I'll tell you what, the two of you with the virtual background, it's like watching a child get a new toy. Dave looks like he's a ghost. For
I know, I'll be right back.
Okay, there goes Dave. Ginsburg is now in a lake somewhere, which, thankfully, hopefully, can you swim? I don't know if you can swim or not.
I can swim. Yeah, I can do the front crawl. Yeah. I can do a little bit of the backstroke, the doggy paddle. But that's about it. And I often sink, so especially if I've been drinking. But yeah, I can
swim.
I can tread water for a solid 10 or 15 seconds.
That's good. That's a good 10 or 15 seconds of you treading water. As I mentioned, Jake Stoller set to join us. The Dallas Stars are in action this afternoon, a game that's available on ABC, on your local ABC affiliate, I believe. So you can watch them play against the Pittsburgh Penguins, the terrible Pittsburgh Penguins. Although congratulations, I guess, in order to Rutger McGroarty getting his first NHL goal and his first NHL assist a couple of nights ago. I'm sure
Drew, we don't care about that.
I'm sure the people in Winnipeg are very happy about that for him. But the Penguins the Stars in action this afternoon, and then again tomorrow afternoon against the Minnesota Wild. So 2 Dallas Stars games. The Jets will know what Dallas has done by the time puck drop happens in Utah this afternoon. Mm-hmm. So again, the Jets will know exactly where they stand. They'll know if it's a 2-point advantage that they have over Dallas. They'll know if it's potentially going to be a 6-point advantage with a victory over the Hockey Clubbers. So that's, the Jets will have that knowledge and have that ability to be able to, be aware. Awareness matters. They'll know what they need to do in order just not even to keep pace, but to stay ahead of Dallas and all the other teams coming behind them to try and catch up to them. So it's an important part.
The best is Dave giggling because we've got a private chat going on, and as Drew's trying to keep the show on the rails, I can see Dave giggling because me and him are sending comments back together in the private chat. Come on, Dave, get back on track here.
I will get back on track. I'm trying to keep my point here, but you know what, Drew? The one thing that I think is even more is the fact that Dallas now will, not now, but by the time Jets and Stars meet, of course, join us, the three of us at Boston Pizza on Taylor for that one. That's going to be a great one. The IC watch party, the place you need to be if you're not here on the post-game show live, online, I should say, then join us live in person at Boston Pizza Taylor next Thursday.
Yes.
But the nice thing is they'll have caught up in games. So the Jets and Stars will be even. There'll be no more game in hand, and we'll know exactly where those two teams stand, with those guys having played 3 and Jets obviously having played 2. And then they'll have that game against each other on the 10th. So that game is going to be fascinating, and you are going to want to get a spot at Boston Pizza. Don't rest on your laurels and wait for Bardot to make a reservation for everyone. Make sure you get your calls in and reserve your spot and come and join us. It'll be a lot of fun. We'll have a great time at Boston Pizza. But of course, as you said, Drew, there's things we have to focus on in advance, and that is this game against Utah. Because the one thing I like about this Jets team is that win or lose, they put it behind them. And I think that's been key to their success this year, is just leaving it behind and just moving on to the next one. And we'll see if they can do that tonight in a game against a Utah team that's plucky. But as you know, it's funny, their coach yesterday was interviewed and he said, the body's not dead yet. The plug hasn't been pulled. We've still got some life. But I was like, well, you're dead. This team it's over, but they're not going to just give up and play dead. So it'll be a good game, I think, against the Jets tonight.
Well, it's welcome to the program from Sportsnet.ca, Jacob Stoller. Jakey, our kangaroo court that we have here at Illegal Curve issues steep fines for being late, just so you know. So I hope you dig into the wallet and you get the cash ready, because you are being fined accordingly for arriving 6 minutes beyond start time. The only people who are allowed to be late for the show are the three of us, the actual hosts of the program.
I accept my penalty with grace. I'll get a couple matzo ball soups and Bernstein's for you boys.
That's good.
And then we'll be even, hopefully. Sorry about that. Technical difficulties here in River Heights. I don't know if Dave stepped on my extension cord or something across the street, but happy to be here. What's up?
Not too much. We talk about the Winnipeg Jets. Thrilled that you're able to join us, of course. Jets with that huge win on Thursday night against the Vegas Golden Knights to maintain their 4-point advantage over the Dallas Stars. We were talking about it to sort of start the show, Jake. The question of rest versus rust, and how Washington is seeing a little bit of slippage in their quality over the last little while. I think largely due to the fact that they are home and free going to win the Metropolitan Division, whereas the Jets, with the exception of the game against Los Angeles, they're fighting tooth and nail to still win the President's Trophy and be atop the Central Division. How important is it from your perspective that the Jets don't suffer any of that quality and slippage between now and, say, 2 weeks from now when the playoffs begin?
Oh, I mean, it's imperative to any potential run. I mean, the last thing you want is to go into the playoffs. It's cliche, but not playing your best hockey, because I actually worry from a standpoint of you play not your best hockey and you might even win the first round if you play Minnesota. And then you get to the second round against a Dallas or Colorado. I think those bad habits are just overall not top quality. You're going to lose that series 100%. So that's why I think it's important. Not to mention also winning the division. Like, I don't even know what Dallas is. I don't know if Money Puck does this like hypothetical one, but I was very curious if the Jets had lost to Vegas last night, how much that would have improved Dallas's odds of winning first place, because we're only a couple of days removed from it being a 90% chance the Jets would win first place. And now it's like 67 or something, and one loss to the Jets and one win for the Stars, it's going to be a whole different ball game. So Dallas's footsteps are on the horizon. I really think it's important to win the division. I mean, to think that they would play Colorado again in the first round, like that would suck. And I mean, I will take this time to use my platform and say I hate the NHL's playoff format. I think it is so stupid that we are on the 9th year of Edmonton, LA. Like, how long?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like at some point you got to change it up 1 to 8. It's also just repetitive, but anyways, yeah, it's important to win the first round, as I was saying.
Yeah, Jake, I am 110% in agreement with you about the playoff format. And I have no idea if the NHL and the NHLPA are even considering it. It doesn't sound like they are, but Edmonton, LA is a great example. Like, this is actually the 450th year in a row that they're going to be played in the first round, right? And also, the fact that the Jets and the Stars are by far the two best teams in the conference and they could play in the first round, doesn't that kind of show you that this playoff format is a little bit messed up? But regardless, we have the format the way it is now, and we have to live with it, unfortunately. But I wanted to ask you about Cole Perfetti, because you obviously wrote about him for Sportsnet.ca. It was about the evolution of Perfetti. And, week after week, and I'm sure on Winnipeg Sports Talk Sunday Live, you guys have been spending a significant amount of time on Perfetti, right? But it's the way he's been playing. It's almost like impossible not to talk about him and how good he has been in the second half of the season. And, you mentioned this in the article. He's a healthy scratch in last year's first round playoff matchup. He was a healthy scratch in the regular season as well. But for you, the way his game has evolved, what has stood out to you about his game? Because clearly he was struggling earlier in the season. Everybody knows that. He scored an empty net goal against Vegas. It wasn't the prettiest goal, but he still got another point. He just seems to get a point every single game. But what's kind of stood out to you, because he's just fun to watch right now, because he's just a guy that seems to be oozing confidence.
He's had the hockey equivalent of a bar mitzvah. Okay, so when you are a child in hockey, and you're a top hockey player, you can stick handle, you can do all these things. But then, like when you're a child to a man, you got to grow up at some point. You got to get the big time duties. And I think that what you're seeing now with Cole Perfetti, like 2 or 3 instances stick out to me every time I watch him play. Beginning of the year, if there was a 50-50, not battle, but like a puck where he'd have to be a puck race, he'd hesitate every single time. He'd do that, I think, because he realized, I'm not the fastest skater. I'm not going to win this anyways. And it was just kind of this reluctance. Now he's going in head on to those situations. Along the wall, he's winning 50-50 battles at a higher rate. I've had this argument on Winnipeg Sports Talk with people where before they were saying that he was winning battles. Whatever you want to define it as, I think now it's more palpable, and there's no doubt that he's more effective along the wall, which is where a lot of the playmaking is sort of stems from in today's game. So those 2 things, those are so important to being the best version of himself in the NHL. Cole Perfetti's vision and his passing is going to make him a very successful hockey player. But to utilize that, you have to be able to make plays along the wall. Like, look at what Mark Scheifele does. He's the prime example. The wall is like a secondary assist for him every time he gets the puck. Being able to go in, not just go in the corners, but like go and make a play and win a battle and win a foot race and just apply pressure. Like that creates loose opportunities for your team to have the puck more. So that's what we're seeing from him. And I gotta say, like I don't know about you guys, but the most telling game I think was the Washington game, where he was not only did he take a beating from Matt Roy in the corner a couple times and didn't fall down. He must be purple along his sides, but there was a couple plays where he was like picking off past the defensive zone. He was like all over the ice, just making an impact. And the first 30-35 games, him and that line as a whole was just so like stagnant. And like that's the craziest thing to me too now. Like Perfetti hasn't just gone from a weaker passenger. He's a legitimate driver for the Jets right now. Like it's clear as day. And I myself am always the one to say, we'll see what happens in the playoffs. It's a different game. That's true. But right now, from what I've seen in the last 25, 26 games, I've got no doubt Perfetti will be an impact player in the playoffs. Like there's no guessing. I think you're filling in the gaps, assuming he can elevate. He's playing a playoff style hockey right now.
Well, and Jacob, we saw the return to the kind of the old lines, Lowry with Appleton, Niederreiter, Nemesnikov with Perfetti and Ehlers. And of course, we don't know Ehlers' status for tonight, but he's a game time, he's a game time decision. Maybe Scott Arniel gives us more insight at morning skate. I doubt it, or morning availability, I should say. But are you surprised they went back to that after the LA game? Are you surprised that he kind of returned to the lineup? And of course, Iafallo in place of Velarde, but are you surprised that he went back with Lowry and Appleton and Niederreiter, and obviously that trio had some success in the game?
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised. One of the things Arniel said he likes about the Perfetti, Nemesnikov, Ehlers line, he said something along the lines of, how he thinks it could be a really dynamic, skilled line for them. He likes how you have the scissor cycles, the different things, the offensive zone that, brings that skill. Heading into Vegas, my first thought was, okay, why would you have a line together that plays the way that they do, the Ehlers line, against Vegas? Like, they're just going to get pummeled. And I will grant you, it was a fine game, but Ehlers did get caught a couple times being a little too cute against that team. And that's not a coincidence. But I was surprised. I also think, though, it's a comfort thing. Like Arniel, all year I've said Arniel's made the right adjustments. A lot of times they won that game. I mean, I think it worked out okay. So you can't knock that. I think it's more so, okay, in that game, they knew that they had to really, really, really shut down Vegas' top dogs. And he wants to have the Lowry line doing that. The original form. It worked. If it didn't, the question would have become, would he have gone back to those other lines quick enough? Because it seems like every time Arniel goes back to that Lowry line, it takes him a bit to get back to the Ehlers and Lowry duo. I think firmly the best version of the Jets is a team where we see different alterations of those, like very matchup dependent. I think that the Lowry Ehlers duo should be a regular part of this team in rotation. It's the best hockey we've seen Nick Ehlers play. And that's after the first half of the year where I also thought that was Nick Ehlers' best hockey of his career. He's playing a simple game. Being with Lowry, it doesn't make him do too much. Spaces open up for him to drive and play way more north-south. When he goes east-west, he's in trouble. And I think that also gets him on the ice more in 5-on-5. That said, I can understand why the Ehlers, Nemestikov, Perfetti trio is one that they won't ditch. If you want to talk about playoffs and projecting, I don't know. I don't see that line being as good. Whereas if you have Perfetti, Nemestikov, and Niederreiter in a middle six, third line role, I think you probably get more surplus from it.
Jacob Stoller, our guest Saturday morning, the Illegal Curve Hockey Show is brought to you by our friends at Play Now. Don't bet on illegal sites, bet with Play Now instead. Manitoba's local, legal, and secure gambling site, 18 plus. Enjoy responsibly. Jake, looks like Neil Pionk is going to be back in action for the Winnipeg Jets before the end of the regular season. All signs, I would say, point to that. That means you'll have 4 healthy right side defensemen, all of whom have acquitted themselves relatively well over the last couple of weeks in Pionk's absence. How does that shake itself out for game 1 of the playoffs in about 2 weeks' time?
Yeah, I mean, I always wondered, if they tried Colin Miller on the left side. We haven't seen it yet, I don't think, unless I missed something, which I could have. Like he hasn't played on the left once, right?
I don't think so.
Believe so.
Yeah,
no.
I don't believe so. So that ship sailed. I mean, they're not going to do it now if they haven't already. That's what I kind of wondered. We're back to the Stanley Fleury debate on the left. But sorry,
the age-old debate, right, Jacob?
Yeah, exactly. It's old as time, right?
Well, I mean, you can you don't even have to answer that. Is there a possibility of somebody moving of the 4 defensemen, the 4 right side guys? Could you see somebody being the left side defenseman for game 1 of the playoffs?
Well, I think, Drew, like Jacob said, though, right? Sorry, Jacob, I don't want to answer for you, but
Yeah.
I think what you were saying is Colin Miller is the obvious guy, right? Because Luke Schenn, I don't think you're using him on the left side. I mean, he's clearly been elevated to the second pair on the right side, right? So I don't think that's happening. So it would be Colin Miller, but I guess, yeah, then you get back to the Logan Stanley, Hayden Fleury, who's the better option on the left side there, right?
Well, if they haven't tried Miller on the left now, what's to say that at this point, where the stakes are even higher than they were a week or 2 ago, they're going to try something new? So that was where I was thinking when you start to realize, okay, Luke Schenn is going to be a regular for this team. He brings a lot of value. You wonder what it meant for Colin Miller. I mean, hey, any opportunity to have that one-timer available at even strength is one you'd think they'd like. So not going to fully rule it out, but it looks like we're back to the Stanley Fleury age-old debate that you love to hear from a fan base that's team is atop NHL. Can't get rid of it.
Yeah, and I honestly, I think I've said this before. Obviously, Logan Stanley had the bad giveaway against the Kings, right? But I think you could make an argument over the last 2, 3, 4 weeks that Stanley's playing some of the best hockey of the season.
Oh, for sure.
Just for him personally, right? So I don't know if there's a big difference, to be honest, between Hayden Fleury and Logan Stanley. Like I think that numbers. I'm not sure if anybody's looked at these numbers, but I think Fleury has a little bit of an advantage over Logan Stanley, but I don't think it's substantial, right?
So numbers are better.
Oh, are they? Okay, yeah, there you go. So
after that recent stretch that you mentioned, I just think that it's a great point you make. Like the only advantage I would say for Fleury, who I've liked Fleury for what he is, like, but I think what you said is really true is Stanley has played better. Here's the two differences. One, foot speed, which is important to have with Schenn, because Schenn is not the quickest skater, and there's a real worry there that lines are just hemmed in because of their puck skills and offensively, but that their cement legs drag them down. So that's one part. Second is like the giveaways from Stanley. Fleury has his moments too, but
they're not as glaring. Stanley's errors have been glaring for, really since, and I think that's part of the reason the narrative exists, how it exists, is that when you notice him, it's either a giveaway or it's a penalty. He takes too many penalties, and the giveaways tend to be really egregious because he's trying to do, I don't know that he's trying to do too much, but he's trying to give more than he's got, let's say, and take more than he can chew. Again, I don't know that there's an answer or a clear answer coming, and that's still 2 weeks, and it's 2 weeks before the playoffs.
I just think that it's crazy to me to think that with a player as, I don't want to say as good, but as established and polished, let's say, as Colin Miller, who, again, we're being critiquing everyone, but I don't think Colin Miller is like this master, responsible, like steady guy. But to think that a guy of his ilk is being placed on the bench and they have to run one of Fleury and Stanley, to me seems a bit, I don't know. I just think it's kind of overthinking it. Play the better player, see what you have, and if it's that bad, then it's that bad. But I think what you said, Drew, is really true. The problem with Stanley is that for a guy that plays 10 minutes a night at even strength, you notice him a heck of a lot for all the wrong reasons, and in the playoffs, you can't have that.
Well, and Jacob, like you said before, there's no rule that the Jets can't go two righties on the third pair. And like you said, I think, when Colin Miller was out of the lineup earlier, that's what I said. And I'm sure, you and Connor and Liz talked about this on Winnipeg Sports Talk Sunday Live too, right? Like it was unfortunate that Miller was out of the lineup, whether that's, because they were playing Stanley with Shen, or because it was whatever it was, right? And I think it's just one of those situations where he's played well enough to be in the top six. Maybe we see that with a handful of games left, right, guys? Maybe we see Colin Miller a little bit on the left side. I'm not sure, but it's definitely something to keep an eye on. And I wanted to switch away from the defense and players for a second and just talk about the first round, because as Drew mentioned, it's coming up soon, boys. The whiteout is just weeks away here. Days away.
The details to that, thank you, Ezzy, for the details of which will be announced on Tuesday. There's a press conference happening at True North Square, open to the public Tuesday. I think at 12:30, they're announcing all the details regarding the upcoming street parties and whatnot.
Yeah, and you'll be conducting that press conference, of course, Drew.
Naturally.
On behalf of Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club, we have to get that in there. Jacob, I know I'm having a good show if I'm making Drew shake his head a lot. And
I got whiplash. We're only 54 minutes into the damn show.
If I'm not pissing Drew off, then I'm not doing my job on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show.
You're doing your job very well.
Yeah. But looking at the first round matchups, right? Like I've made the argument that I think Minnesota is the better first round matchup, but I want to get your take, because I mean, it could be St. Louis, who obviously hasn't lost since 2021, I don't think. And it could be the Calgary Flames, who have 2 games in hand on both the Blues and the Wild. But for you, like, of those teams, do any of those teams scare you in the first round? Like, do you think the Jets handle all those teams okay? Or do you say, well, I hope St. Louis doesn't slip to, the second wild card spot, because they could really give the Jets a run for their money?
I think if you're the Jets, you're the Golden Knights, you're the Edmonton Oilers, any team that plays the St. Louis Blues is going to have nightmares. I don't think they're slowing down, guys.
I agree.
And if you look back, and I did say on Winnipeg Sports Talk a couple weeks ago, as they were starting to heat up, I just said, as someone that has had Dylan Holloway and Robert Thomas in fantasy hockey all year.
Oh, look at you.
And a 4-peat champion, I should say. Shout out to the boys that are probably watching. I'm going to get kicked out of that league very soon. I will say I've always been a big fan of the Blues. And the reason for that is, if you look at how Nashville had that late run last year and had some success, there's some parallels, right? But here's the difference for me, is that Nashville, that was a very star-driven run, and which is great, but it was a very top-heavy guys performing. And I would say that the lower-end guys were overperforming relative to their abilities, right? I see a good hockey team on St. Louis, like top to bottom, a very good hockey team. Players that have, I love what Doug Armstrong's done, because what you see there is a group of young guys that have hit their stride and hit the next level, plus experienced veterans that have been there before. And when that's rolling and winning since, I don't even know, like since you guys were, I don't know, long time.
And also, sorry, Jacob, just wanted to throw in Colton Parayko's coming back. They've been winning all these games without Parayko.
That's insane. Like that's one of the best shutdown defensemen in the game. So I think honestly, that would be the biggest fear for the Jets. And it's not just, but what I said off the top, it's not just a Jets issue. It's for anyone playing St. Louis. That would suck. Now, I still think that the Jets playing St. Louis, like, of course, they absolutely could win that series. You know, the Jets are still a great hockey team in their own right. But I think Minnesota would be gravy for them. I really do. Like that.
I agree.
That team has just slipped recently, and they've had injuries and whatnot, but they play a similar style to the Jets, but they do not execute it nearly as well as they do defensively.
They don't score enough. That's what I keep saying. Like, they're not going to score enough goals to beat the Jets.
Not at all. Absolutely. And they're not as efficient. Like, I mean, if you look at the Wild in the last, I think it was 20, 30 games compared to the start of the year, like, they're just a black hole offensively, even the underlying numbers as well. So that'd be gravy. I think the Flames would do the same thing. I do think the Flames, if they played against the Jets, would steal a game or two. Maybe 2 or 3, I would say. I don't know. I like them. They're kind of that. They got nothing to lose. I like Dustin Wolf. I think that it would be a real big jolt for the Kadris and Hubertos and those guys to be there. So don't think they would go down easy, but I think the Jets would take them handily.
Jacob, got to ask you about Dylan Samberg, a guy who we've obviously covered for some time now. And, you know, I thought Luke Shen, who was on Frankly Speaking with Frank Seravalli, who will be coming up in about half an hour, had a real good chat with the veteran defenseman. And he was asked about his Jets' first impressions. And I thought his comment about Dylan Samberg caught my ear. It said, I didn't know a ton about Samberg before coming in here. He's really, really impressed me with how good a skater he is, how good at defending he is. He's got some good offense to his game. He can eat minutes. And I know that the folks at The Athletic just did a survey of, you know, top 10 underrated defensemen. Samberg was on it. I mean, if you're the Winnipeg Jets, how soon can you sign this guy to a full long-term deal? Because it's something we've known. If you follow the team, you've seen his progression, you've seen his growth, you've seen his maturity. But it seems like now more and more folks are suddenly starting to realize just how critical a piece Dylan Samberg is.
Before I answer to that, though, I think even for us that did follow him, I don't know if we expect him to be this good this year. Like, to me, this surpassed any expectation for me. And what I mean by that is he's become such an integral part of the team, not just, you know, replacement for Brendan Dillon, which was kind of the objective that was needed. He's become one of the drivers for this team. Like, he tilts the ice in their favor on 5-on-5. He's excellent. In terms of the extension, I would think the Jets are doing everything they can to get him for 8 years. And I wonder if Samberg's camp, assuming that they do want a long-term deal, is saying, Dylan, go for 6 years. Because afterwards, you know, even if you're 3/4 the player you are now, at that time, you're going to get another massive contract, just given how the cap is rising. So I wondered if we'd hear an extension. Kind of, someone mentioned that Chevalier was having negotiations with his RFAs and UFAs, but you know, I'm sure for his camp too, they probably want to wait till after the playoffs, where, you know, if he's logging 28 minutes a night in the playoffs, get a couple extra zeros on his deal there. But to me, that Shen comment was interesting because I found in years past, even I didn't realize like how athletic Dylan Samberg was. And I remember I spoke to, before the year, Dylan DeMello in one of my first pieces for Sportsnet about like kind of the gaping hole there for Brendan Dillon. And what he said was, I don't know why this guy can't be like a Jacob Slavin or a Gustav Forsling that shuts down other guys' talk and is just a disruptor. And this year he kind of has become that. Like, Dylan Samberg is a lockdown defender. Like in basketball, that shooting guard you have that just won't get off of you. Samberg just disrupts plays around the blue line time and time again. And what DeMello also said to me was the next step for him is offensively. Like, that's where he needs to take it. And this year, it's like, this guy's this is an above average point producing defenseman, let alone, you know, marginally improving. So I think the Jets have an absolute stud there. Here's a question for you guys. Do you think his AAV surpasses Morrissey's current one?
I do. I just don't. I mean, you can't compare them because.
Drew, I agree with you.
Yeah,
it's not a matter of if we know how inflation works. Players don't.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That's yeah. I mean, if you can somehow get Dylan Samberg. I mean, Frank Seravalli, who's going to join us in 30 minutes time, put out his top 50. His top 50 UFAs for this summer, and Neil Pionk is, according to Frank and the numbers that they've crunched, Neil Pionk's going to be a $7 million defender. I mean, he's going to get $7 million a year over 6 years is the projection,
which is basically, with inflation, the same deal he has now.
Yeah. Right. Yep. Elevated, yes, exactly right. This is according to AFP Analytics. They're the ones who crunch the numbers for Frank and the good folks over at Daily Faceoff. But they're talking about Pionk being a $7 million a year defenseman. I bet you the Jets would rather allocate that to Samberg than they would to Pionk, especially given Salomonson's presence in the lineup moving forward. And you have Schenn and Miller still on the back end, at least for another year each. Both of them are under contract for next season. So there's no urgency. I mean, if you have one area of strength for the Winnipeg Jets on the back end, you have DeMello under contract, you have Schenn under contract, you have Miller under contract, and you have the future in Salomonson also, potentially able to step in. So that's why I think that of the two, if you only have to allocate, and I know that Samberg is RFA and Pionk's UFA, but Samberg, let's be honest, is UFA after next season unless there's a long-term deal coming. If you can only allocate money between Samberg or Pionk, you look at your roster and you say it's got to go to Samberg.
Yeah, the one thing I agree with you, but is there that choice that needs to be made? Because let's pretend Ehlers isn't here next year. Let's also take into account that Hellebuyck and Comrie, the goaltending cap, makes a combined $9 million, 9 change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I mean, have a lot of cap,
which Jacob, but just hearing you say that is absolutely absurd.
Yeah,
because I've made that argument that Hellebuyck should be like a $12-13 million goalie. Right?
Oh yeah. And Comrie should be making 2 or 3 with how good he's been this year.
Sure,
but he's not going to get 2 or 3. I think if you went to Comrie and you gave him 2 years and then $1.5 million each, I think he'd probably take that.
No doubt. I was just saying about like how valuable he's been this year. You're right, but the point I'm trying to make is I don't know if that decision needs to be made between Samberg and Pionk. I think it's more so the Jets saying to themselves, like, how much of a risk are we like? Can we afford for this Pionk contract to suck for half of it?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's where I think that, is the value that Neil Pionk brings you in the first 3 or 4 years of this deal enough to offset what could be a really bad back half of the year? Now, I saw this as someone else. A buddy of mine mentioned, he was like, Pionk hasn't missed a game in years. Like, he's a pretty durable guy. And that may be true, but I worry about how much this guy puts his body on the line of how durable he can be in the long term. The guy played with a broken foot last year, which is just absurd. And he's just a wrecking ball out there. And that's fine. I don't know if this version of Neil Pionk we're seeing this year is indicative of what you're getting for the next 7. So that's
Jacob, that's why I was going to say, like, I think, like, I've said this before on a legal curve. I've said this, to friends and stuff. I think at the beginning of the year, people would think this was absurd, but I think, Samberg, you can make an argument, is an 8x7 defenseman. Like, I really think, like, especially with the salary cap going up, the fact that you're buying out, obviously, those prime UFA years, right? 8x7 at the beginning of the season, people would say, like, what are you smoking? And
it's still a question they ask you all the time anyways.
And obviously, yeah, and give me some, please.
Yeah, right.
But like, an 8x7 now, like you said, he has become an elite shutdown defenseman. He's not like on his way to becoming an elite shutdown defenseman. He is one right now at 25 years old, right? So, but with Pionk, I'd be a lot more comfortable. Like, if the Jets gave him 4 years, $7 million a year, I'd be like, okay, that's a lot of money, but it's only 4 years. If you're giving him 7x7, okay, then I'm like, that's a lot.
To tap out.
Yeah, that's kind of the way I'm looking at it. So,
well, that's where it went with Brendan Dillon, where when they're in negotiations, they had a certain, I don't even know if it was just a term, but there was a point the Jets were like, okay, we're going to get uncomfortable at this number. And good on Larry Simmons and Chevy for being that way, because Brendan Dillon not having the best year in New Jersey right now.
No. I'm a Devils fan, Jacob. I can tell you that it's been a little up and down. Yeah.
And so you always have to keep your bottom line. I also maybe I'm pessimistic. I just think with the cap going up doesn't mean that you need to spend it right now. So what I mean by that is next year, the year after, we're going to see more free agents hit the market than traditional. So what I mean by that is, yeah, Neil Pionk's market value might be that, but some teams might say, I'm not allocating the future years of our salary cap configuration for this guy when I don't know what's going to be out there in a couple of years. So I'm saying that in the sense of I'm not sold Neil Pionk gets that amount of years on the open market. Not sold.
Well, time will tell. Jacob Stoller, Sportsnet.ca. Great appearance this morning here on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. We appreciate your time, Jake. We'll watch for more of your great work, and thanks so much for doing this.
Thanks, boys. I'll send you the e-transfer for the fine.
Yeah, that's good. The Kangaroo Court is now in session, or session is now ended for the Kangaroo Court. Thanks, Jake.
Thanks, boys. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Take care. There he goes, Jake Stoller, joining us this morning on the Illegal Curve Hockey.
We only need six more for a minion, boys.
Yeah, I know. We're close enough. I think everyone would agree that 4 of us is more than enough. Frank Seravalli is set to join us at the bottom of the hour. We'll talk about his great interview with Luke Schenn, which is available on illegalcurve.com. If you missed that, Frank sat down with Luke Schenn for about 40 minutes. And if you know anything about Luke Schenn, of course, you know how well-spoken and how articulate and how honest he is.
Absolute beauty.
Exactly. So you can check that out after this program ends. Of course, Frank Seravalli still to come, and much more Jets talk on the horizon as well. More on the defensemen, more on the pending free agents and money allocation. Saturday morning, Drew Mandel, Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg. It's the Illegal Curve Hockey Show presented by Play Now.
We want to thank you for not betting with Play Now and choosing our illegal gambling sites instead.
Because we couldn't afford things like this without your money.
So much of your money.
Now you might have questions like,
Do our profits benefit your community?
No.
Or bet with Play Now, Manitoba's local legal and secure gambling site.
Dining, entertainment, parking, and convenience, all in one spot. City Place is located in the heart of downtown Winnipeg, attached to the Canada Life Center. Whether you're working, living, or out for a night in the downtown, make City Place your go-to destination before or after the fun finds you. Lunchtime, game time, anytime, visit City Place at 333 St. Mary Avenue, next to Canada Life Center. Holt Dental, the new official dentist of Illegal Curve, has a philosophy rooted in 2 unyielding principles: genuinely caring about patients and providing outstanding service. Being a patient of Holt Dental means more than just checkups and treatments. It's taking the time to listen and talk to each patient so they can achieve the best long-term health, functionality, and aesthetics for their teeth, mouth, and gums. Conveniently located at Grant Park Festival on Taylor Avenue, Holt Dental is dentistry of the highest quality in a comfortable and relaxed environment. For more information, visit holtdental.ca. Oh, and there's plenty of free parking at the front door, too. Celebrating its 40th year as Winnipeg's home for stand-up comedy, Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club has recently been named Canada's top comedy club and a top 5 comedy club in North America. From birthday parties to date nights to fundraisers and everything in between, Rumors is your destination for the best and most affordable live entertainment Winnipeg has to offer. For more information on upcoming shows, Rumors' incredible promotions, and to purchase tickets, visit rumorscomedyclub.com.
At Boston Pizza, a fast lunch doesn't have to mean fast food. Now you can get a $15 lunch served in just 20 minutes, including your choice of a main, side, and drink. That's right, lunch for $15 at your local Boston Pizza.
speaking of our local Boston Pizza, again, a reminder, Thursday night, the Illegal Curve watch party and live on location post-game show. We will be at Boston Pizza on Taylor Avenue, our home away from home, covering the Jets and the Dallas Stars. So we want you to join us on Thursday. It's going to be a packed house at Boston Pizza on Taylor Avenue. A lot of hype for the latest installment of the Jets versus the Dallas Stars. So we're looking forward to that. Drew Mandel, Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg with you on this Saturday morning. Frank Seravalli coming up in about 20 minutes time. It was a good talk, good conversation we had with Jacob about the defenseman and about Neil Pionk and about the contracts. And we'll talk about that more over the course of the next 45 minutes or so. What do you think about using one of the right side guys on the left side for the start of the playoffs, Dave? I'm going to start with you because I'm thoroughly ignoring Ginsburg and his changing background on purpose. So I'm going to start with you with that question.
I mean, the thing I don't like about it is that if you're going to experiment, you probably want to be doing it now and not waiting till the playoffs when it's
They don't have the option yet. I'm saying,
No. I understand that, but I'm saying that. So once you have, Pionk healthy, we'll see if Scott O'Neill does something he hasn't really done this season, which is he has done righty, but it was righty with Miller on the right side. Pionk moved over to the left side. And so we'll see. I mean, again, to me, the big question as to whether you want to have, lose that shot. And you have a guy who plays with a lot of experience, but again, it's not the best to be doing it this late in the season. And that's the whole reason of having depth, right, boys, is that you have guys who can step in and play that role. The one positive that I would say is that if anybody has a bad game, you can quite easily give them the hook. It's not like you're sitting there going, well, player X had a bad game, but we don't have that replacement. The truth is that if Fleury has a bad game, you can put in, Stanley. If Stanley has a bad game, you can put in Miller. If need, move him onto that left side. So I'm just saying that it's not a foregone conclusion, but let's be realistic. Right now, the way Scott O'Neill has run the way he's run the bench and the way he's run his D pairings, we know it's going to be DeMello, Pionk, and Shen. That's your right side, provided everyone is healthy for game one, Ezzy. That is your right side. The only question mark is the left side because we know it's Morrissey, Samberg, and then that big question mark is: do you put Miller on the left side, and then you have what we saw what he was able to do in Vegas, right? That big. Nobody has a shot like he does from this team. I'm sorry, like guys can get their shots through, but nobody has the velocity on the back end that he does. So you do have that.
And he's only on the second power play unit because Pionk is out of the lineup.
Right.
And so you almost wonder, even when Pionk comes back,
does Miller
Colin Miller
that spot?
I think there's a good chance he does, guys. And Dave's absolutely right. And like I said, I wasn't watching the game live, but I watched the replays. And Colin Miller had a couple shots, like he just wristed a couple shots in before he scored the goal.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's a very confident player in that position. And I think, guys, sometimes you don't want to overthink it, right? Like ultimately, Scott O'Neill and the coaching staff have to make that decision. Who are the optimal 6 defensemen that we want in the lineup for the playoffs, knowing that we have players that can come in, like we have suitable defensemen that can come into the lineup, whether that's Hayden Fleury, whether that's Logan Stanley, whether that's Miller, if he's out of the lineup in, let's say, game 1 or game 2 and he can come back, right? And that's why I think my opinion is that I don't think you necessarily see the same 6 defensemen for every game of the playoffs, depending on what happens, right, guys? Because if you want a little bit more speed, there's always a chance that, Colin Miller comes in for Luke Shen on that third pair, right? So I think you have to look at it like that, right? Like the playoffs, the stakes are obviously higher. We know that Logan Stanley has had some costly turnovers, not just recently, but throughout the season.
Right.
So these are things that the coaching staff thinks about, right? Or are we more confident with Hayden Fleury there? He's played a little bit more.
Fleury and Stanley have their warts on the as the third pairing left side defense.
Yes.
They both have their drawbacks. There's no question about that. And also, I think that when you consider the playoffs, I mean, it's not unreasonable to think that you're talking about, for your third pairing left side guy, 10 minutes a game.
Yeah.
If you're thinking of Morrissey and Samberg are going to eat up 50 of the 60 minutes on your left side.
20 to 25 each for those guys.
Right. I mean, you're not, there's no second halves of back-to-backs. There's no, there could be, I suppose, a back-to-back in the playoffs, but that's very unusual that, for that to happen. So you are talking about there is enough rest time between games come playoff time that you can really run your top four. You can, when we've seen guys do it, remember back in, when Chicago's heyday, it seemed like Duncan Keith and Brent Seabrook never came off the ice for the Blackhawks. The way that the coaching staff is able to use the TV timeouts to give them rest and things of that nature. And it's
a good reference, Drew. Brent Seabrook, he's one of my all-time favorite defensemen. That's a great old school reference. Back in the day when they had, remember, Nicholas Hjalmarsson and the pizza man Johnny Oduya on the back end for the Hawks.
Why are we forgetting Johnny Oduya?
Free pizza Johnny Oduya.
No, and Drew, going back to kind of what we were talking about, like the third pairing dilemma, right? Like, do you try Colin Miller on his offside? Like, if you were to ask me,
or Luke Schenn on his offside, it doesn't have to be Miller specifically.
I kind of think like when Pionk is back and healthy, I see Pionk going back to playing with Samberg, because we know Samberg and Pionk, they obviously not only have the Minnesota connection, right, Dave, but they complement each other really well. I think Samberg brings the best out of Pionk. And you also have to ask yourself, Logan Stanley and Luke Schenn as a third pair, like, is that a little bit too slow? Like, do you worry about that defense pairing is going to struggle a little bit to get the puck out of their own zone? Or are they going to be able to transition effectively enough, right? I'm not saying that that's the case. Yeah. I'm just saying that these are the things that the coaching staff thinks about. So I think, Dave, that, you're going to see probably, 7 or 8 defensemen, obviously not at the same time, but I think, you could see at times, if Logan Stanley's struggling, Hayden Fleury goes in. Maybe if Luke Schenn has a bad game, because you remember, guys, 3 or 4 years ago, when Luke Schenn won the Stanley Cups with Tampa Bay, he didn't play all the playoff games. Right. I think, was it not him and Zach Bogosian who were rotating? I could be wrong about that, but Zach Bogosian was also on that team. So Luke Schenn was kind of that 6-7 defenseman, right? And that's not a bad thing. That's a compliment to the depth that the Jets have on defense, right? With guys like Hayden Fleury and Colin Miller, right? So it's tough to say right now, Drew, but it's an interesting thing to talk about because, Luke Schenn has fit in seamlessly, right? Like, and he's done an admirable job playing in the top 4. But I think we would agree that, especially once you get deeper into the playoffs, you probably don't want Luke Schenn playing 20 to 25 minutes a game, like we know Neil Pionk can play, right? So that's where it gets interesting. What are the different combinations going to be? But going back to what we were talking about with Jacob Stoller, boy, I think it would be a shame if Colin Miller isn't playing significant games in the playoffs, because I think he's done everything that's been asked of him and more.
And just to jump on to Azzy's point quick, and then Drew, you can go in with what your thought was. But I was just going to say, when you actually look at playoff experience, Colin Miller has 41 playoff games, including that long run with Vegas when they fell to the Capitals, right? So he's got a lot of playoff experience under his belt, more so than Logan Stanley and Hayden Fleury. Hayden Fleury has 18 games total playoffs with mostly with Carolina. He played 17 with Carolina, 1 with Tampa Bay, and Logan Stanley has a grand total of 12. So the point I would make is that, where mistakes are magnified, where the stakes are higher, you may want someone, at least in the first little bit, depending on how he goes, who has that experience, who has that capability, and is not going to potentially be disruptive. Because again, what do we always talk about with the third pair? You don't want to notice them. You don't want to be talking about them. Right. And so to my mind, I think a guy like Miller, with his level of experience in this league, and like, as he says, when he's been asked does he make mistakes? Yes, he's made mistakes. But I'm just saying that, and again, like, I don't think he played. It was funny because when he was paired up with Dylan DeMello on that goal against in LA I think it was the Gustafsson turnover where he was on the left side because DeMello was on the right side. It was during a line change. Like, I thought he was playing a little far over and didn't necessarily play it properly. But again, I would just, that's nitpicking on one specific play. I'm just saying, like, I probably think
all of a sudden Dave is Ray Bork over here.
He's breaking things down like Howie Meeker with the old telestrator. Stop right there.
So but again, like I said, I just wonder that if there's a benefit to a guy who's been there, done that, at least more so than the other two.
You know, you look at the numbers for Colin Miller this year, his expected goals, second on the NHL and on the Winnipeg Jets at 54.3%. That only trails Josh Morrissey and just by a fraction of the number. He's done nothing to warrant not being in the lineup. I mean, that's really what it boils down to. Of all of your options, you know, come playoff time. And again, the question is, but Dave, you love the quote from Nate Schmidt back in the day when he was just trying to break through with the Washington Capitals, who said he'd play left side, right side. It didn't matter to him what side he was going to play as long as he was going to be in the lineup. I do wonder if that's something that the Winnipeg Jets coaching staff is exploring. I'm sure they've talked about it. And, you know, when Pionk is healthy, and that looks like, you know, he hasn't practiced with the team, you know, yet. You know, he hasn't had a full practice. He skated sort of with them as part of morning skate, and you expect that he won't play for the Winnipeg Jets until he gets a full practice under his belt, which means maybe, you know, and who knows what the injury situation is, but maybe you're targeting Monday or next Thursday against the Dallas Stars. You know, you have to wonder, you know, what does his return to the lineup do for the Winnipeg Jets and add maybe another option? Maybe that's why Kevin Cheveldayoff didn't go out and get a left side defenseman at the trade deadline, that they thought that maybe one of Schenn and or Miller can fill that void and he doesn't have to use an asset to try and bring somebody, you know, into the lineup. I mean, it's definitely going to be interesting because, you know, and we've known all year where the weak part is on the Jets back end. It's the third pairing left side spot. Maybe the answer has always sort of been in front of our eyes this whole time. You're on mute.
He's never sounded so good.
I know.
Sorry, I'm trying to enjoy the Great Wall of China as well as being on the show today. But the other thing too, with having two right shot defensemen, one right shot defenseman on the left side, obviously, and one on the right side, is that you can actually, in a way, Dave, you can actually get that one timer by Miller. It's almost stylistically and strategically a better way. Like we've talked about that about the power play, right? Having a right shot guy on the left side, right? So like in a way that could potentially open up Colin Miller's shot even more than him being on the right side. Just something to think about. Like there's always different strategies. The left shot, right shot thing to me is not set in stone. It doesn't mean every single team has to have three left shot guys and three right shot guys. You see guys that are right shots that play on the left side all the time. It's not like it happens like once a year on one team, right? Like guys and like Drew said, it was a good reference. Nate Schmidt did that when he was a Washington Capital, right? And there's a lot of examples of guys playing on their offside, right? So it's something to think about, but I think ultimately, you know, it's going to come down to who's playing the best. And right now, I think Colin Miller deserves to be in the top six, whether that's on the left side or the right side, but we'll see. I mean, Logan Stanley's obviously, out of all of the defensemen we're talking about, he's played the most games on that third pair on the left side, right? He's played a little bit in the top four, but not a lot. But I really do think, guys, that you're going to see more than just six defensemen, and especially with injuries, the Jets go on a long playoff run, right? Like it's tough to stay healthy if you're going on a 3 or 4 round playoff run. So that's why it's good to have, you know, this extra depth. But it's definitely, I think, a little bit of a mystery because it goes back to earlier in the season. You know, do you guys remember a player named Ville Heinola? Remember when we used to talk about him? I mean, he's still,
is he Scott Arneal's favorite guy?
Well, yeah. He does exist. And I mean, he is, I guess, the number 9 defenseman for the Jets right now. But like if this was last year, guys, going into the series against Colorado, we would be talking about why can't Ville Heinola get in on the left side? We didn't even mention his name there. And a few months ago, you know, we were still talking about it.
A month ago?
Exactly. Yeah. No.
Yeah. I mean, he's clearly.
I think it was against Seattle, if I recall correctly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, he hasn't played a lot in the last few months.
Well, he's clearly the 5th option for the Winnipeg Jets on their left side. I mean, that doesn't include anybody moving from the right side to play the left side. He's behind Hayden Fleury. He's behind Logan Stanley.
His last game was February 22nd against St. Louis.
Okay, so that's 6 weeks ago at this point in time. That's the first Saturday back after the Four Nations.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's how long it's been. So it tells you that he's certainly fallen out of favor.
It tells you, Drew, that he's been practicing a lot and not playing.
You're right, and he's been up in the press box eating popcorn with Dave rather than being on the ice for most of these games. I mean, it's, you know, again, it's been a topic all season long. This third pairing left side for the Winnipeg Jets. It started off as a topic, way back in training camp and way back at the Hockey for All Center for the Jets Fan Fest show that we did, however many months ago. It's still a topic. I wonder.
It's still a topic. Yeah, Drew. Like, it's funny though, but the Jets keep winning, right? Like, it's been it's almost like, are we talking about this because it's worth talking about, or are we talking about this because it's one of the only things that is a glaring issue or glaring? I'm not going to say weakness, because I don't think it's necessarily. Actually, no, I would say it's.
I think we're talking about it because it's certainly going to be an area of opportunity that the other teams are going to try and take advantage of for the on the Winnipeg Jets. When they do their pre-scout, you remember back that series against Anaheim. Anaheim.
Wow, you're going back 10 years now.
Well, but you remember what they did. They targeted Toby Enstrom. They said that he's too small, we're too big, we're too fast, we're too physical. We're going to throw every puck into the corner of Enstrom, and we're going to go and we're going to run him through the end boards.
Yeah.
That, the opposition coaches are looking at the Jets and they're saying, okay, now Enstrom was playing higher up in the lineup, so he was playing bigger minutes. So they had more opportunity to go after him than the 10 or 12 minutes that Stanley or Fleury or whomever are going to play for the Winnipeg Jets. But that's definitely going to be an area that the other teams are targeting. Now, every team has a weakness. So if your weakness on your team is your third pairing left side defenseman,
that's
probably the weakness you're most willing to live with.
Yeah, that's a good weakness to have, Dave. And like we've said, the Jets continue to churn out wins, right? We mentioned it earlier, 18-6-1 in their last 25 with whoever was on the left side third pair, right? But I think you would probably agree, Dave, that we're going to see more than 6 defensemen, even in the first round of the playoffs.
And I was actually going to jump off that point, and I was going to say the one thing I think to what Ezzy's saying, I don't want to use the word point, but what Ezzy just said is the idea that, we also have to take into account home ice advantage and being able to choose the matchups a little bit better. So perhaps that also plays a factor in who gets to be that third pairing left side guy, because from Scott O'Neill's perspective, games 1 and 2 will be in Winnipeg. Maybe he uses someone in that instance that for games 3 and 4, he's less likely to use based on the fact that, he won't have that option. And so he's going to be more inclined to choose someone maybe like a Colin Miller, who feels less likely can be targeted or exploited to the same way a Logan Stanley or a Hayden Fleury gets to be.
Good point by Dave M. Frank Seravalli from Daily Faceoff is up next on the show. We take our final commercial break. We're commercial free for the rest of the program. Drew Mandel, Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg, the Play Now Illegal Curve Hockey Show continues. Smash the like button while we head to break.
We want to thank you for not betting with Play Now and choosing our illegal gambling sites instead.
Because we couldn't afford things like this without your money.
So much of your money.
Now, you might have questions like,
Do our profits benefit your community?
No.
Or bet with Play Now, Manitoba's local legal and secure gambling site.
Dining, entertainment, parking, and convenience, all in one spot. City Place is located in the heart of downtown Winnipeg, attached to the Canada Life Center. Whether you're working, living, or out for a night in the downtown, make City Place your go-to destination before or after the fun finds you. Lunchtime, game time, anytime, visit City Place at 333 St. Mary Avenue, next to Canada Life Center. Holt Dental, the new official dentist of Illegal Curve, has a philosophy rooted in 2 unyielding principles: genuinely caring about patients and providing outstanding service. Being a patient of Holt Dental means more than just checkups and treatments. It's taking the time to listen and talk to each patient so they can achieve the best long-term health, functionality, and aesthetics for their teeth, mouth, and gums. Conveniently located at Grant Park Festival on Taylor Avenue, Holt Dental is dentistry of the highest quality in a comfortable and relaxed environment. For more information, visit holtdental.ca. Oh, and there's plenty of free parking at the front door, too.
Celebrating its 40th year as Winnipeg's home for stand-up comedy, Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club has recently been named Canada's top comedy club and a top 5 comedy club in North America. From birthday parties to date nights to fundraisers and everything in between, Rumors is your destination for the best and most affordable live entertainment Winnipeg has to offer. For more information on upcoming shows, Rumors' incredible promotions, and to purchase tickets, visit rumorscomedyclub.com.
At Boston Pizza, a fast lunch doesn't have to mean fast food. Now you can get a $15 lunch served in just 20 minutes, including your choice of a main, side, and drink. That's right, lunch for $15 at your local Boston Pizza.
Hour number 2 of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show rolls on. Drew Mandel, Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg, and we're thrilled to welcome back to the program from Daily Faceoff, our good friend Frank Seravalli joins us on the show. Frank, good morning. Thanks so much for joining us. How are things?
Yeah, really good. How are you guys doing?
We are doing great. We appreciate you giving us your time. We know how busy you are. Obviously, lots going on about 2 weeks before the start of the playoffs. I want to start, though, with the interview you recently conducted with the Winnipeg Jets' own Luke Schenn. Frankly speaking, it was a great interview. I guess just generally, what was your main takeaway of your time spent with Luke Schenn, a guy who's certainly had a bit of a whirlwind last month or so, getting traded twice in 48 hours, but now he's into the top team in the league with his eyes set on a playoff run?
Yeah, I think the biggest takeaway that I have is I think everyone from a fan or casual perspective looks at it and says, hey, these guys are multi-million-dollar pro athletes. Everything's simple and easy and clean, and okay, so what? They get traded. Lots of people move for their job. And look, I've known Luke Schenn for a long time, going back to his days as a Flyer, almost 15 years now. And this has been an incredibly difficult period in his life. I don't know that everyone kind of has a full grasp of how hard it is you have 3 kids under 7, and all of a sudden you get a call and you're on a plane and you don't see them for the next couple months. He said that he's seen his kids about 48 hours in the last 5 weeks. So the Jets have been incredibly gracious. They have gone out of their way to, whenever there's a break in the schedule, make sure that he gets back to Nashville to see them. But it's one thing to be managing that part. It's another thing to then try and park all of it and be a high-level pro athlete. And that part it can be really challenging because sometimes the mental can impact the physical. So really revealing conversation. One of the favorites that I've done on Frankly Speaking, and I've had a lot of guests, and we got into a lot of different stuff from that part of it to joining a team that is atop the league, to his mindset and his journey of, hey, this guy was almost out of the league at 700 games and he just recently crossed 1,000. So it's been a wild run. And now the amazing part of that story is you could very well have the 2 Schenn brothers on a collision course in the first round, which would be incredible.
Now, we obviously want our audience to go listen to or watch the interview in its entirety, almost 40 minutes of you and Luke Schenn. But the real interesting point that I wanted to ask about is Adam Oates, because Adam Oates, to us in Winnipeg, is most tied in with Mark Scheifele, given he was Scheifele's skills coach, and he really helped develop that offensive side of Mark Scheifele's game. Now, when you think offense, you don't necessarily think Luke Schenn. So maybe for our audience, why did Luke Schenn credit Adam Oates for helping save his career?
Well, yeah, it's not just offense. He has, I think, a little more than 100 clients throughout the league, which is a really significant chunk of the population. I would argue that despite not being on an NHL bench, he's maybe one of the highest paid coaches in the league, and in a good way, because people continue to seek him out. And I think at the beginning, when he started coming around and doing individual skill work with players, there were a lot of teams that were upset. I think the Jets were one of those teams that were initially pretty cautious about, hey, what's this former NHL head coach working with our players for? Is he trying to distract them or get them to play a different way or going against what your coach's wishes are? And it's never anything like that. So he's not only taken players like Mark Scheifele to another level and helped them, but with Luke Shen, it's a lot of things. It's, he basically said to him, like, look, at your age and your body type, you are what you are. You're not going to be getting any faster. And it's going to be about making subtle plays and thinking the game faster, putting yourself in a better position for success. So a lot of the things that they work on, and we went in depth on this, about changing his curve, changing his stick lie, working specifically on picking up pucks off the boards. Little things that the common fan, and again, even as someone watching as closely as I am or you guys are, we might not notice, but that's actually the point, is that we don't see them because he's working in those areas to get better and make sure that it doesn't lead to mistakes that are noticeable. So it's totally changed his career. And I also really enjoyed that part of the conversation, that he was willing to say, yeah, first thing he did, look at my stick, and I changed my curve. Like, how often do you hear a player say that?
I know. Well, obviously, the name of our show is Illegal Curve, Frank. So we love hearing that. You don't hear a lot of talk about curves anymore, right? You hear more conversations about guys, their flexes and everything like that, right? But just one more thing on Shen, because as we mentioned, we have it on illegalcurve.com. Frankly speaking, it's amazing. It's 37, 38 minutes. And like you said, Frank, it's really a behind the scenes, right? Like Luke Shen, you guys get into it and he tells you exactly what it was like, that roller coaster kind of 48 hours where he was only a member of the Penguins for, actually think less than 48 hours, right? So I really enjoyed it. And I think, I speak for everyone here in saying that he's already become a very popular Jet, because a lot of Jets fans obviously, thought a second line center might be coming at the deadline, but he's come exactly as advertised. He's playing on the second pair now with Neil Pionk out of the lineup, and he's doing exactly what Jets fans wanted him to do, and that's be a shutdown defenseman, block shots, lay bone-crunching hits. So I think Jets fans have quickly forgotten the need for a second line center. And obviously you could still make the argument maybe that once the Jets go against a team like the Dallas Stars, maybe they could have benefited. But I digress here. But I want to get away from the Jets for a second here and just talk about.
Actually, can I chime in on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I think one of the things that came out of the trade deadline coverage, and we're always so quick to react in the moment, is I think there was like a big letdown from Jets fans. Like, oh man, we didn't get the piece that we were after. And I think what was lost in that is the idea that the Jets improved their team. They did get better, but it may not have been in the area that everyone wanted it to be. And in the end, sometimes getting that, like another reminder, sometimes getting that piece that you lust after doesn't end up working out anyway. That it's not about the big splash, the sexy addition that puts you over the top. There's zero doubt that the Jets are a better team now than they were on March 5th. Now, how much better is up for debate, but you mentioned Dallas, and I wanted to bring them up for a specific reason, because think back to their run last year. They go up and make it to the West Final against the Oilers. They were essentially down to like 4 or 5 defensemen, because they got to a point where they weren't even playing some guys that were in their lineup single-digit minutes per night, because they didn't trust them. And if they get to a spot where, someone like Luke Shen is pressed into more action or more duty, you need 6, 7, 8, 9 defensemen in order to get through a Stanley Cup playoff run that's of any quality or substance. And those type of pieces are going to be absolutely necessary. He may not win you a series, but he's going to put you in a position to hang in, particularly if you end up with some significant injuries.
Absolutely. I think that's a very good point that you make. And I wanted to ask you about Alex Ovechkin, because obviously, we've spent a lot of time talking about the Jets, understandably so today, but I mean, it was just incredible watching him score a goal, 894, and then not go on the ice to possibly get 895 into the empty net. I think a lot of people were really hoping for that, but obviously the Capitals play the Islanders tomorrow afternoon. I think it's safe to say, Frank, that the television ratings for that game are going to be absolutely through the roof.
Well, it's not going to be just television ratings. The ticket sales are insane too. The get-in price is hovering around $2,000 for a nosebleed seat. It goes to show you, like, first off, right now, the power of hockey. I mean, if you think about this run for the NHL, we've gone from 4 nations to a ridiculous trade deadline, now to the Great Chase, and then we're into the Stanley Cup playoffs in like 10 days. 2 weeks. It's that part has been unbelievable. People are yearning to see history. And on top of that, I'd personally like to see him not break the record on Long Island, just to give Caps fans a chance to see it again on Thursday. I know it's a long time to wait and sort of carry over the suspense, but I do think it's interesting that people have said, oh, well, you should sit him out to play at home. I don't know that they're necessarily going to go that far.
No.
But he also has scored in 3 games in a row and has 4 goals in his last 3 games. It wouldn't be unusual for him to not score a goal in one game along the way. So even if he's trying, it's going to be so interesting to see. And you mentioned the empty net part. And a couple weeks ago, I was at Amazon doing Coast to Coast on Thursday night, and we were sitting in the cafeteria before the show, and I had mentioned exactly that. This was right around the trade deadline. I said, oh, Ovi has told people, he's told teammates that if he has an opportunity to break the record with an empty net, that he's not going to do it. And Bruce Boudreau happened to be there. He was sitting within earshot, not even at our table, and he just piped up. He's like, that's bullshit. He's like, there's no chance if he gets an opportunity, he's gonna score on the empty net. And I was like, okay, man, like, you would know, like, you know, who am I to question Bruce Boudreau? But I'm going, like, here's what I've heard. Yeah. And so this has sort of been emanating behind the scenes, obviously, for a little while now. And it's just interesting because people have always had preconceived notions about what Ovi is or isn't. And you heard Wayne Gretzky mention last night after his record was tied, you know, about being there and shaking his hand. And he said, you know, one of the things that really stands out to him is integrity of the game. And it's not, you're not knocking on the integrity of the game if you score an empty netter. They count all the same. But I think it speaks to the integrity of the game that Alex Ovechkin views it through, the prism of that. And look, he's so gifted. He doesn't need anyone's help. He doesn't need an empty net to score again. Why do it the easy way? As awesome as Friday night would have been, to like not only have the empty netter be the record breaker, but also to have hats raining on you at the same time. Like, you could make the argument that would have been the most thrilling way to do it, to get your 34th career hat trick. Nonetheless, I think this anticipation just kind of builds and builds.
Well, Frank, I'm going to bring it back to the Winnipeg Jets, a team that, you know, not a lot of folks had as one that would be challenging for the President's Trophy, one for challenging for the top of the Central, top of the Western Division. I think the Jets always play better when they're disregarded, when the pundits aren't picking them to win the Stanley Cup. But from your perspective, as a guy who's watched this team and now through 77 games, and we know that this team will be judged based on their playoffs and not on the regular season, are you seeing a team that can make a deep playoff run?
Without question. Like, if you said to me that 2+ months from now, the Jets are going to be in the Stanley Cup final with a chance to win their first cup in franchise history, wouldn't be surprised in the least. They're deep, they compete, they've been able to score at will, and they've got the best goalie on planet Earth. I think the tough part for me in sifting through all that is I just don't know what to make of the Jets. They're a really, really good team, and the path is exceedingly difficult to get there. And just as we were talking about the Blues, like, you might not even get a cupcake in the first round for all of that work. Mm-hmm. And I'm not creating excuses or reasons as to why they can't. It's just that it's such a weird sport. in general when you get to the playoffs, like Columbus beating Tampa in a sweep a few years ago, the best team doesn't always win. And I think it's the lack of recent playoff success that I think is holding me back from picking the Jets to win, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
It's almost like you need to see it to believe it. And I think the other part in saying that is it's really difficult for me to kind of have envisioned myself saying that, if that makes any sense, because I was at all 3 rounds in 2018. Like I was there for almost every Jets game. I think the only one I missed was the first one in Minnesota that spring. And to think that a lot of these same core players would be in this spot 7+ years later and not have any further success to speak of, I would have been really, like, my jaw would have been on the floor if you told me that at the same time. So they're eminently capable. We'll see.
Frank Seravalli from Daily Faceoff, our guest on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show on this Saturday morning. It's presented by our friends at Play Now. $11 billion, Frank, gets you a lot of hockey coverage, and that's what Rogers is going to pay over the next 12 years, more than doubling the current contract. Besides a skyrocketing, a bit of a two-part question here. Besides a skyrocketing salary cap, which we know is always going to be the case, what does this new television contract really mean for hockey and the Canadian teams, specifically? And then as an addendum, what does it mean for Bell Media, both of our former employees, vis-a-vis their hockey coverage? Because we know that Rogers gets more Jets games, more Senators games as a result of this deal, rights that used to belong to Bell Media.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say, look, the devil will be in the details of how this ultimately plays out. We've seen the change in this season alone with Amazon buying the Monday Night Hockey package, as well as launching Coast to Coast on Thursday nights. And, one thing that it seems like we're going to see less of in a couple years are regional blackout restrictions, which, to be honest, like, I'm surprised that we still have them. As someone who is a creator for the most part in the digital space, the best thing you can do is get your program out to as many eyeballs as possible in the exact way that they want to consume it, and worry less about subscriptions and fees that come in that way. That's how I've always thought about it. I think the NHL is pretty progressive on that front. We've seen that with Victory Plus Network, that is now the Dallas Stars, Anaheim Ducks, and holds the WHL rights. They have an app. You can watch it free. Doesn't matter where on the planet you are. And so, look, this is a landmark rights deal. But the other part of it is it doesn't begin for 2 more years, and it goes all the way till 2038. I don't know what things are going to look like 3 years from now or 5 years from now. We might all be out of jobs and AI takes over the world by 2030. To think of how we're going to be consuming hockey and what that looks like in 2038, it makes your brain explode. And so I think my short and long answer is that there's still a lot to be determined.
Yeah, absolutely. And I hope, by the way, that AI takes over in 4 or 5 years. That's what I'm hoping for, Frank. But I don't think it's going to happen. Maybe not for hockey content. That's for sure. I don't think people are going to want to watch.
I don't know. Look,
I think we could do an AI version of this.
I talk to my friends all the time at the Associated Press, and as like the biggest newswire service in the world, they've started going to largely AI written game stories. So you might not be able to tell, but 85 to 90% of the game stories that the Associated Press is putting out are written by AI.
Well, as long as Stephen Wino still has a job, that's all I really care about.
Yeah, agreed.
But AI is definitely coming. It's already here. I wanted to ask you, Frank, about a tweet that you put out, and I have to admit I didn't get to catch the DFO rundown, but I thought it was really interesting what you talked about when you made a case for it being so I'll just read the tweet, but you said that, is it time to change from an 18-year-old age-based draft to a system where players declare themselves eligible for their draft at their own pace. And I thought that would be really interesting for you to present that case, because I didn't get a chance to listen to it, but I just thought it was really interesting, that idea, because I think you'd agree, a lot of people have been calling for changes to the draft. Some people think there shouldn't be a draft whatsoever, but what was kind of the genesis of that, to present that on DFO Rundown?
Well, the funny thing is, it was off the cuff. Like, we didn't plan it. And I just launched into it kind of on my own volition. And not that I wish I could change my thought process, but now having a couple more days of sober thought to like revise it, I would present a more streamlined approach, which is I can boil it down super simply for you. It's kind of a foreign concept, I think, to many Canadian hockey fans.
Mm-hmm.
You'd have to really follow closely how they do it in the NBA or NFL. And that's essentially the model, obviously, that we have down here south of the border, which is it's not just all 18-year-olds are eligible at the same time. That doesn't really make any sense for hockey. It might have made sense 50 years ago when the entry draft was first sort of starting up, or 40 years ago. Now, it's become such a crapshoot, the science of drafting and scouting. It's not to try and figure out who the best 18-year-olds are. We could all do that by going to the local rink. It's trying to decide, of the group of 18-year-olds, who will be the best players at age 24, which lends itself to statistics like, of every third-round pick in NHL history, only 11% of them go on to play 100 games or more. 11%. Like, that's the third round. Can you imagine what the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th rounds are? It's nonsensical that we continue to do it this way. And I think with two things happening at once, the NCAA changing legislation with CHL players being eligible, and with the NHL and NHLPA negotiating a new CBA, let's transition to a declared base system where you could be 18, you could be 22, you could be 20. You decide, you have to raise your hand and say, hey, I'm ready to be picked now. And you shorten the draft to 5 rounds. And the thought process is very similar to the NFL. That player that you're picking in the 1st or 2nd round, or whatever, any round, the 5th round, they're ready to play in your NHL lineup that fall. Because they legitimately and truly are ready. It takes the guesswork out. It's better for players who have less pressure on them, can develop at their own pace. And then, say after age 22, by the time you hit 23, everyone who turns 23 is a free agent. I just think it's better for the players, it's better for the teams, it's better for the junior leagues, it's better for NCAA. I can't think of one downside off the top of my head, and I've had multiple stakeholders. I've had league commissioners call me since that podcast. I've had league executives call. They all want to talk about it, and no one to this point in time has had any. I'm asking them, poke holes in it. Tell me why this doesn't work.
Interesting stuff there, Frank. Well, I speaking of UFAs and that idea, we've got the DFO top 50 UFAs on the board. So my question for you is, I'm not going to ask you to go through all 50, of course, but just from your perspective.
Yeah, just go through 45 of them.
Yeah, just give me the top 45 where you think they're going to end up. No, but in terms of how many of those guys do you think will of the top 4, 5, 10 guys, how many of those guys do you think, especially because there's a few Jets on that list, are going to end up signing with their teams before July 1st?
It's a great question. I think when you look at the free agent class as a whole, I always it's not really the equivalent of a trade happening before the deadline, but every time there's a guy that signs an extension, I'm like, oh, this class could have been so much better. Like, you think of Shesterkin in the beginning of the year, or go through the many guys that have signed contract extensions. Shea Theodore and Mikko Rantanen is a great example after being traded twice. Like, this crop was on track to be something really special. And I think with each extension signed, it's another reminder of teams, when they have impact players, they don't want to let them go. And I think the Jets in particular, to bring it back to Winnipeg, are in such an interesting spot that I wonder. I've been making this comparison all year, and don't hate me when I say it, but I think there's a little bit in Winnipeg of the same feeling that exists in Toronto, which is a team that's been a fantastic regular season team the last few years, hasn't had the playoff success necessary to really make you want to double or triple down on all the pieces there. And so they've left themselves some wiggle room that, hey, if this playoff run is exceptionally short, if we're out again in round one, that we've got to make some changes here. And that could be with regards to Nick Ehlers. That could be with regards to Neil Pionk. I'm always curious about American pending UFAs playing in Winnipeg. I'm sure everyone is. And then what about the rest of the group? Like there's questions for a team that has so much salary cap space heading into the summer. Why hasn't there been more progress on some of these UFAs and getting extensions done? And that's the only thing I can come back to. It's not that they don't like the player. It's not that they aren't willing to sign them. It's almost like they're waiting to see, hey, are we going to have the success required in order to make us want to keep these guys and take another run at it?
Last question for you, Frank. John Tortorella was dismissed as Flyers head coach about a week ago, maybe 10 days ago now. There was an incident between him and Cam York, so their relationship wasn't great. But it seemed like the Flyers' whole organization, Danny Briere, John Tortorella, they were on the same page that there was going to be short-term pain versus long-term gain. Did Tortorella maybe did it get to the point where he just wasn't able to handle the short-term pain anymore, and as a result, this dismissal had to occur?
I don't know if it's necessarily the short-term pain. I think it's more so a cumulative effect of being with a team that has had an exorbitant number of losses and really has no light at the end of the tunnel. You know, they've got a really interesting piece in Matvei Michkov, who we've seen spring back to life after Tortorella's departure, but they don't have a franchise goalie. They don't have a franchise defenseman. They don't have a number one center in their pipeline. And when you take a look at all those things and you're John Tortorella and you say, hey, I'm going into the last year of my deal. All of our personalities have been clashing. These losses have really had a profound effect on me. I'm probably getting fired at the end of this season regardless. I'm going to stamp my feet and jump up and down and get in everyone's face, and I'm going to get myself 6 extra weeks of vacation. That's kind of how I look at it. It may not have been as sinister as that, but this is a guy that doesn't do very well of hiding his emotions, to his credit and to his dismay. And that's sort of how I think things have played out here over the last few weeks. And I think a sigh of relief, not just for the Flyers organization, but for their players to just have a little bit of a different feel heading into the offseason.
Frank Seravalli is with Daily Faceoff. He's with Amazon. He's a great friend of ours and a great friend of the program. Frank, we appreciate your time. We appreciate your insight. 2 weeks until the playoffs start. It's going to be a hell of a run. It's going to be fun. We'll keep it locked, of course, to dailyfaceoff.com for all of your great coverage.
Always great to be with you guys. Take care.
Take care, Frank.
Cheers, Frank.
Thanks so much for joining us this morning. There he goes, Frank Seravalli, joining us this morning, joining us obviously from his car, which is great that he was able to make the effort to join us. So much fun. This flew by, boys. It's already 11 o'clock. I don't know where the time went, but we get to get back together again later on this afternoon, later on this evening, around 8:45. For the Jets and the Utah Hockey Club, the post-game show. We're looking forward to that. So everybody should diarize that. Turn on your notifications on the YouTube channel. That way you'll get alerted each and every time we go live, which is what's going to happen later on tonight. Well, the Jets will know where they stand. The Stars will have played this afternoon. So we'll do some scoreboard watching and we'll do some game recapping later on tonight at 8:45. And hopefully by then, Ginsburg will have picked the background and just settled with it. But we know that he enjoys being easily distracted.
Well, I don't know if you've noticed the theme, but I'm picking all of the places Dave has been in the last year. That's what I've been doing. We saw Vegas, we saw a little secret location that was on there earlier that I'm not going to mention because Dave didn't even tell us that he was there. That's the whole thing. The reason why I'm having all this fun with virtual backgrounds is because I'm trying to get Dave to go back to his regular background so we actually know where he is, but I don't think he's going to do it.
No, there's no question he's not going to do it. Dave is wagging his finger like the Kembe Mutombo against you right now. But, that's okay that you're having fun. As long as you're happy, that makes me happy. And makes Dave happy.
You know what makes me, that's actually not true. What makes me happy is when the 400 plus, almost 450 of you smash that like button. That's what makes me happy. So smash it, subscribe to the channel, download the podcast.
Yes.
Leave comments.
Yes.
And of course, share us on your various social medias, whether that's Facebook, whether that's Twitter, whether that's Threads, whether that's Blue Sky, whether that's Ezzy's Mastodon account, whatever it is, share Illegal Curve.
Let me tell you, that Mastodon account, that Mastodon account has been collecting flies. Because
I'm not joking. I'll never forget when Ezzy's like, I've signed us up for Mastodon. Drew and I were like, what the hell is Mastodon? But sure enough, it was a social
Dave,
media
I'm pretty sure you were on Blue Sky like 3 years ago.
I was the one who got us on Blue Sky.
Well, actually, that's not true. What got us on Blue Sky was that one of our subscribers beseeched us to join Blue Sky. Drew joined as Illegal Curve. I joined as IC Dave. Drew basically put the Illegal Curve account. It was fallow. There was nothing doing with it. So I had to I kept churning out all the stuff on the IC Dave account. And I felt like, honestly, for the longest time, I was yelling into the void because there was nobody on there. And then suddenly it flipped the switch and there were a bunch of people. Although Threads, IC is hot on Threads. So if you're on Threads, we're on there as well. We're pretty much the only Jets people who are still on Threads.
It's too much social media. I like with Instagram and X, and I still, have a nice little following on Facebook, even though it seems like Facebook, the average age is like 75 plus. But yeah, it's just too much with Threads and Blue. Like I have all these accounts. I can't keep up with them. But that's why we have Dave M, who's posting on 19 different social media accounts.
I do have some breaking news ahead of Thursday's appearance at Boston Pizza.
Okay.
Producer Tim will be on site on Thursday night at Boston Pizza. So that is great news because
huge news.
He knows how to make us sound perfect. So live on location again. Thursday night, the Jets and the Dallas Stars, Boston Pizza, Taylor Avenue. It's the place to be. It's going to be jam-packed. We're going to do a live-on-location watch party and a live-on-location edition of the Illegal Curve post-game show. So after the Jets and the Stars on Thursday night, be at Boston Pizza on Taylor Avenue. Join us then. But later tonight, of course, live here on our YouTube channel, on our Facebook page, on all of our social media platforms for the Jets and the Utah Hockey Club. The post-game show right around 8:45 or so. Go ahead, Dave.
And don't forget, Moose and Wolves, 2:00. I'll be there. And so that game will be the appetizer to the main course. That game will just be ending. I'll have enough time to get home and then I'll get somewhere. I'm not going to tell Ezzy where I'm going to be, but I'll be somewhere. And then we'll
firing up the PJ again. The PJ is going to be flying all over the world. You never know where Dave's going to end up.
Honestly, though, people think we're joking. We honestly don't know where Dave is half the time. Like with the virtual background, like we think that he's in Winnipeg. We think he's in River Heights, but we actually don't know.
Anyways, but the other thing I was going to mention, of course, I think it's worth noting, and it's in note 4 on today's Illegal Curve morning papers. Colby Barlow, 2023 first rounder, goal and assist yesterday for Oshawa. They win in game 5. Oh, no, sorry. They lost game 5. So they play game 6 on Sunday in Brampton. Braden Yeager, the 2023 first rounder over in the WHL. He and the Hurricanes beat up on those Brandon Wheat Kings. He had a goal and an assist. So he finished with, and he, by the way, he had 11 shots in the game. Brandon as a team had 26. And then Marcus Lopin in the 2024 fifth rounder had an assist in the Royals romp over Eric Comrie's old team, Tri-City, winning 7-0, and they advanced to the second round as well. So we'll see. It's very interesting. Is Kieran Walton going to be joining the Manitoba Moose on an ATO? Will he sign his ELC with the Winnipeg Jets this week and then join the Moose? I don't know, but stay tuned to find out.
There you go. All sorts of happenings at the junior ranks and at the U.S. college ranks. So keep it locked on illegalcurve.com.
Well, it looks like Drew's lunch is here. I heard that notification.
That's not my lunch, thank you, Ezzy. That's much more up your alley than it is mine. Big thanks to everybody for joining us this morning here on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Big thanks to Jacob Stoller. Big thanks to Frank Seravalli. In case you missed either of those interviews, download the podcast, or the instant replay is available on the YouTube channel. Big thanks to all the sponsors of Illegal Curve who make the Saturday show, the post-game show, and the website a possibility. Our friends at Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club. A few tickets left left for Mike Rita tonight at 9:45. So you can get those rumorscomedyclub.com. Play Now, Holt Dental, Boston Pizza, City Place. We will be at City Place for pregame shows before all the Jets home playoff games. So more details along those lines to come in the coming weeks, of course, as well, once we know the schedule. And our friends at Seagram's support these fine businesses because of their continued support of Illegal Curve Hockey. Big thanks to my colleague Dave Manouk, the World Traveler. Big thanks to my colleague Ezzy Ginsberg, the Background Traveler. I'm your host, Drew Mindell. Until later tonight at 8:45 p.m., we remind you that if it's Saturday, it's the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. We'll see everybody later on. Thanks, everyone, for joining us.